Yeah. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Happy to be here. Thank you, Jack, for hosting me.
No problem. Thanks for taking the time to join me. Yeah. For people who don't know who you are, could you introduce yourself, please?
So yeah, hopefully by now, we've been to some podcasts so far, and in general, I always like to start with my techie background. Obviously, I'm born and raised in Israel, currently in Portugal, and I study computer engineering. And yeah, I was starting my entrepreneurship career very early when I was 21. Built a few startups, different domains, different verticals, from fintech, supermarkets, business intelligence. And yeah, and three and a half years ago, I jumped into Web3 to find something new, some new passion that I can bring and leverage my knowledge so I can contribute to this amazing vertical, amazing revolution in finance.
Sounds great. And we've spoken about it previously before. But you've had a really interesting career journey. Could you talk us through? You mentioned there around you started your entrepreneurship journey fairly early, but could you go into a little bit more detail about what's kind of brought you to this point now?
Yeah, so I guess the first stop who brought me to the in general was me studying computer engineering, uh, and I study in Israel. Usually, it's called the startup nation, right? So it's an amazing hub that you can easily get access to mentors. Every second connection you can get to someone, and especially the Technion, it's kind of the MIT of Israel, was bombarded with ideas, with innovations, with new startup, that coming up in like more than 20 years ago, when after the dot-com boom. And I think that that's really resonate in me, this entrepreneurship bacteria, how you call it. And very from a very early age, I wanted to develop something with a value, to find gaps that I can pair using technology. And yeah, my first initiative was um, in kind of a competitor to Wix. Everyone, I think, today have bumped at least in Wix.com.
Yeah, I think
And
my website's built in Wix.
exactly. So it's, it's very familiar for our conversation today. And yeah, I thought after a few projects approached me and really asked me to build a website back then in 2009, we decided to build kind of a Wix competitor when Wix was still not that big, obviously, based on Flash. And yeah, we started this business with a friend, actually with a close friend, and we ended up selling it after 3 years. That was my first dive into the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Israel, where I made my first networking, my first connection. And yeah, I think this is where everything started when I was 21.
That's cool. And you mentioned there about mentors and you're involved uh, in an area of the world that obviously is the startup nation, as you said. What part do mentors play when you're even going through the ideas to start a new business, or maybe thinking about going into a new venture, or even trying to build a career? Could you maybe talk through that a little bit, like what part they play in your journey?
So, I realized that in my early days, you cannot just build yourself without getting the vote of confidence of other people, without consulting. Many times, mentors are just bringing you a way to shortcut, right? It really like telling you they seeing something, they in a similar tunnel that you are in a similar tunnel that they probably passed dozens of times, and they say, okay, I the same light that I see right now, I also see, but maybe I can help you not get to the wrong light, or maybe I can help you shape to get to another much more brighter light. And I think this is the power of experience, right? Was telling a joke once that you know a guy was coming and wanted to fix my piano, right? So he came and he said, "Oh, there are a few problems there and here. Like I need to fix it." And in in a relatively short time, 5 minutes, he just solved the problem, and he charged for that $200 or something, right? And he said, "But the piece that you changed was like $2 or something. Like What's the how does it make sense?" And he said, the piece, yeah, really, it's $1. The experience is 199. And this is kind of, it's an example telling you, yeah, if you can see some patterns and you see formation of templates in your past, so why not using someone that has them in order for you to get further, in order for you to jump and bypass hurdles that in every innovation, in every entrepreneurship route you have. And I think I was lucky to from a very early age. Like I went to all the kind of meetups, um, incubation program in my university. I was in the student council. I was putting a lot of emphasis about networking. I think I even celebrated just now uh, 20 or even 90 years in LinkedIn,
Wow.
which is crazy because back at the time, like, why should I open even LinkedIn? Like I'm a student. I like LinkedIn was at the beginning. Social network was not so strong in Israel. It came much later to Israel after the US, Facebook and stuff. Um, but I think I put a lot of emphasis on, okay, I talked to this person. Let's see if he's on LinkedIn. I'm going to send him a request that maybe one time in the future I will need to reach out again. And I think this, again, it's specifically for every entrepreneur, but I think this was really helping me to get exposure, awareness to what I'm doing, and really took this concept of networking, mentoring a step further to help me achieve goals in my career.
I think networking is such a key skill that people need to try and master, whether you're trying to be an entrepreneur and launch projects or startups, or even just to really kick on in your career in general. I think people quite underestimate the power of being able to build a good network, really. Um,
Yeah,
it's definitely.
it's very, yeah. Maybe if I can add another thought, it's I remember a friend that always also wanted to be entrepreneur, and he was thinking, when is the time to stop going to meetups all day and start building something, right? And it's a very, especially in Web3, like I think the power to have a successful career or project or whatever in Web3 is even 10 times more important than focus, right? Because you have so much context switch during the day. I was just meeting some friends from 2 years just now in the weekend here in Lisbon, and we mentioned like Web3 job, it's 24/7. You literally can work in every minute, get response. Some people from other side of the world going to answer. You have ongoing, constantly news, and it's never stopping, right? So if you want, you just, it's a week, it's 7 days. You didn't take any weekend, and you're going to continue coming to the next week. So you need to put yourself the boundaries and to serve the goal that is one of the most principles of entrepreneurship, focus. If you are spread your focus too thin, you don't have the resources, especially at the beginning, to get to your next goal. So I think this is a key factor for every entrepreneur, especially in Web3.
Yeah, you're right. And this might be quite a difficult question to answer. To ask you maybe a similar thing to what your friend was saying. When is the right time? When you're a founder or you know, you're thinking about launching a project, or you're talking through an idea and you start to network. At what point do you go, right, enough is enough, I've built my network enough, I need to now start building? Do you ever get to that point? Do you always need to be networking, you think? What's your thoughts?
Um, yeah, I think like in everything in life, it's not it. You should balance, right? It's not black or white. You should not stop going to meetups, but indeed, you need to take the next 1, 2, 3 months in building and shaping the vision. Web3 events at the beginning was really helping us to build the right narrative. And narrative is something very flaky in Web3, right? Like how many times you're able to go to an event with at least 500 people and really test your new narrative on couple that, top VCs, founders, reputable founders, angels, mentors, OGs, just across a few meters from each other, right? So I think this kind of speed dating with your idea and bringing it to the crowd is something that really help us shape what we want to build in Lava, what we started developing, how we design it, that people were, oh yeah, that's a problem that I know. That this is how we started with Uber for Nodes, for example.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. Um, so yeah, to have that. Well, I suppose Web3 is quite a unique industry, where there's so many conferences that you have the ability to always be testing these ideas, right, and always speaking to peers in other projects and this kind of stuff. You know, it seems like every month there's another conference somewhere in some part of the world that you could go to and get in a room with people on similar journeys and that kind of stuff. Uh, it's quite a good industry in that sort of regard, I guess.
Yeah, if I can compare it to the previous industry, I was in retail, right? Retail
Okay.
tech. I think I'm one of the pioneers in retail tech in Israel, even. It was not a name. You ask me, which category are you building super smart, my previous startup? They say, is it IoT? Is it fintech? I said, no, it's retail. And they say, oh, sorry, we don't have this category retail. Like, I think we were the only startup as super smart that was in both accelerator, both for Mastercard and Visa, which were really rivals accelerator. They said we're
Yeah.
not gonna take same startup for both, but they took us. And I think like really when I was doing the submission early in 2015, like they didn't have this the category retail, and I think it's a great analogy to what we see in Web3, right? If you think about new terms that coming up, it's like narrative that always evolving, right? Like I think 3.5 years ago when I started, when I said multi-chain, some people were even telling me, no, there's going to be a consolidation of L1s. Like when afterwards you start and you say, no, there's going to be only one stable coin. I said, look, we know Do Kwon personally, right? But I think there's going to be some others even sophisticated, like you see today, right? It's the pluralization of different chain, everyone with its own unique preferences, everyone with their own they serving a specific goal, and I don't think it's going to go away, right? It's we are in the no return point, and this is why I jumped personally to Web3.
That's cool. And did you always know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Was that always the path for you?
Look, if you think about my family, like a very traditional conservative family, we are like for 3 or even 4 generations that I know, always a couple of engineer and a doctor.
Okay.
And like they were always, you should study good, you should have great grades, you should get accepted to a big company, to an institute. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Sorry. So I was kind of, I'm always like to present myself, I'm the black sheep, right? My sister study to become a psychiatrist. And again, I'm an engineer, right? So I knew I wanted to do something with computer. I knew I wanted to be an engineer. But if you think about kind of my first invention, I will never forget that I was, I think, in the seventh or eighth grade, And I since then I wanted to cut lines, or I didn't like queues, or I liked it to get from one place to another much faster. So I was doing a sketch of rollerblades built in a shoe. So basically, like, you have a zipper, you opening, and then you can just roll the wheels, and thus it turning to a rollerblades, and again turning into a shoe when you get back home. And I made this sketch. Obviously, I didn't know anything. And I remember after 5 years, we started having in Israel the first kind of rollerblades plus shoes. That so anyway. Long story short, I think I always like to find gaps. I like to find problems to solve. And I always like to quote one of my mentor, Uri Levin, that founded Waze.
Okay,
He always told me, fall in love in the problem. Don't fall in love in the solution.
it's good. It's a good quote.
Yeah, yeah. It's credit
Yeah,
to
I like
Uri
that.
Levin.
I like that. So obviously things have changed for you quite a lot since you were, 7 and 8 and drawing the sketch of new ideas and new inventions and stuff. Could you talk us through what a day in the life of the CEO of Magma Devs and contributor to Lava Network looks like?
Yeah, I think
Varied, I would imagine, but
yeah. It depends, on which point of time. Is it today? Is it like a few months ago? I think in general, um, we as a contributor to Lava, and we try to get guidance from the community, get guidance of what actually the foundation needs, helping them in BD, making sure that the infrastructure is bulletproof, and kind of like to coordinate between the different stakeholders of the network. I like to engage with the community, right? I'm speaking daily with our amazing actors in the community, whether they be non-techie, techie, obviously validators. There's a lot of activity that people don't even realize there. And at the end of the day, what Lava building is kind of an infrastructure that connecting the dApps to the different blockchains. So today we support 30 more blockchains, and in more than dozens of them, Lava has real partnership going on. They have something that called a pool of incentives that's serving this ecosystem. So it means that during this time, talking with the actors, with the dApps, with the providers on those specific chains. I'm speaking with the founders of the chains to see what kind of need there. Maybe there is a big airdrop coming up. We should prepare better the infrastructure to support that. And I think in general, I'm super passionate about what we build, and try to balance this work-life balance uh, of understanding the new technical developments in overall in Web3, with the real understanding of what's going on those specific ecosystems.
okay, cool. So it sounds like a lot of context switching, like you said at the start. Um, a lot of context switching between different topics. How do you, if someone is stepping into, a CEO role for the first time, for example, they'll have to context switch quite a bit, and they'll talk to the community and talk to the engineers and really understand the new infrastructures coming out, or new things that are being built in the industry. Where do you go to learn the skill to be able to context switch, do you think? Is it a trial and error, you have to just try it and sink or swim type kind of setup, or are there certain skills that you think you can master to really help you do that? I'm not sure if you have any. It might be quite a difficult question to answer, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
No, I think it's a great question, because it makes a great entrepreneur who knows how to master that, right?
Okay.
I remember, and I don't like to quote him, but on this I will take him. Jeff Bezos always saying, "You should wash your own dishes." And when first time I read that, I said, what the fuck is talking about. I'm guessing he have a few, a few people he hires that can do it for him, right? But
Yeah.
he talks about that because you need sometimes to stop, to reflect, and do a passive thing that you don't really think about. You're like a robot, and then you can organize your multitasking, prioritize, right? Um, um, uh, so I think Steve Jobs said that he always trying to take the minimum amount of quality decision in the daytime, right? You see, Steve Jobs, he was wearing always the same T-shirt because he didn't want to take uh, anything from the energy to take a quality decision. He didn't want to take the paradox of multiple choices to choose the shirt with the color out of this energy to use that. So I think it's really amazing. Um, Back to the question you asked, I think you should have a very good co-founder. I
Okay, cool.
I was lucky. I was unlucky in my previous journey to be a solo founder. It's something that I was 6 years a solo founder, and I think it's the only position in the business world that everyone is against you and you have zero alignment of interest with anyone. Not
Mhm.
obviously not your investors, not your employees, customers, like all this chain, and nobody has the skin in the game with you. So it was really tough 6 years that you always need to say, oh, what's the subtext? What do you actually really mean here? What does he actually want? And to find a co-founder, it's not an easy task. And I think what is amazing balance between me and my co-founder, that I like to hustle to get new people networking, but he is more reserved and like to keep focus on a specific goal that he's making. And I think this kind of balance creating a lot of, okay, this week we're focusing on that, in 1 month this is where we want to be, that's the goals, that's the roadmap, and yeah, it served us quite well so far.
That's cool. It sounds like from what you were saying, obviously you've had some really good mentors throughout your career. You've obviously been lucky enough to find really good co-founder for projects and stuff as well. Um, it sounds like there's a theme there that it's very difficult to make it on your own. And I think there's quite a few people who maybe start that entrepreneurship journey and try and do it without taking any help and this kind of stuff. But it sounds like that's a super important part of being an entrepreneur and launching projects is understanding who to search for, what type of help you might need, try and find people who complement your skill set to make the difficult times maybe a little bit easier and you can kind of lean on each other and that kind of stuff. Do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, I think that there is these principles, and it's like you need to sorry, you need to make sure that you adjusting those principles to yourself, because there are some people that are great entrepreneurs and they don't like to go outside to event all the time, right? They build an amazing product even at home. They are able to test it without the networking skill set. So there are examples for here and there. I think one of the amazing TED talks that I've seen in my early career, it was of Bill Gross, and he mentioned that there are five criteria for a successful startup, and the one that minds the most, it's timing. So it's 54% of the success is contributed to good timing, and obviously it doesn't say
Okay.
anything. What is good timing? How can you choose it, right? So it's not the product market fit, it's not the co-founder, the team, the experience of that. Yeah, but if we can start from somewhere, I would really recommend find the right co-founder. See, like you are able to. It's a marriage, right? It's a marriage for a certain amount of time, or maybe all your life. You don't know. So see how do you how you communicate, how you set expectations. That his life balance. Sorry, that his life balance is relevant to yours, and obviously that your goals align. What if we hit the fence earlier? How we are dealing with conflicts, and so forth. It's one of the first steps to assemble a successful career together.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, to be honest, because Web3 is such an entrepreneurial industry. It seems like everyone I talk to wants to launch their own project, or eventually they don't know necessarily what the idea might be, but they know that they want to, give it a try to be a founder and launch a project and this kind of stuff. Um, I was going to
It's
ask if
amazing,
you,
very sexy title, right? Like,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I was going to ask you if you had any tips, or anything that you think people need to be aware of before they launch a project of their own, because it has this glamorous connotation to it, right? If you're a starter in a founder in Web3 of a startup, you raise money from a VC fund, you get to build this amazing team remotely and grow these cool products and stuff. That's the glamorous side of it and the glamorous impression, but there must be another side that people need to be aware of before they launch. So I'd love to hear if you have any tips or any advice that you could share if someone is thinking about doing it. I know that's quite a broad question, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
no, I think just to summarize, I think a few topics or points that we spoke earlier. Definitely, I have couple of my personal takeaways after more than 2 years here in Magma Devs and building Lava, and in general, what I see about other journeys and stuff like that. So yeah, I can share. I think we the first point is definitely about the mentors, the advisors, first angels. They should be reputable ones, right? There should be someone that they did something, built something, advice, OGs. They are the real door openers, and the late night call when you are maybe feel lost, maybe you need to sharpen something, maybe you need to practice to a pitch the other day. So find the right ones. Second one, my takeaway is a very interesting thing in raising funds in Web3. It's all about the momentum. I see a lot of founders that like, yeah, I'm still raising, I'm raising. I said, no, don't do it. Okay. Like you should identify the stage, especially at the beginning, pre-seed, seed, and don't don't ask too little, right? But immediately, as fast as you can, find the right lead. And we have a playbook for that. My co-founder and I, sometimes we help other startups. Go first to your inner circle, right? Try to see to test the pitch on themselves, right? And make sure that those are actually the pitch, the narrative that you use in order to raise the funds. But when you find a good lead investor, just close it immediately. I feel like because it's never ending building in Web3, so founders are struggling to understand this concept. It's not never ending fundraising because there is a momentum. So once you find a lead investor, close it, take the follow-up investors, whether it's an ecosystem, a chain, someone, and make sure this investment arm is closed. You secure the funds for the next 1.5, 2 years, so you can build quietly. Anyone else who's coming after that, and yeah, I want to participate. Don't worry, you're gonna have you're gonna have another option, another possibility to enter the next time. Don't forget that FOMO with investor is an amazing thing. Um, I think I have a couple more points, obviously, but and if you would like, I can continue. But another point I think about is finding the right team, right? So with me and Gil, 80% of the team was no zero crypto background, but
Okay.
they are crazy techies. They building products from A to Z. We knew that we're gonna make sure how we design the right narrative. That is our goal. But we want to bring the builders that knows how to take a product from a sketch to really a production level. So we brought the best, tech engineers that love what they do, and we told them this is a very unique opportunity. At the beginning, I think we were always kind of showing off that we have like employees that have their own startup before, right? They even raise funds might not super successful of selling it, but those kind of the first team that you want to rely on. And I will summarize this point by giving a good analogy to a basketball match, right? What players are the players that you choose to start as your fifth five opening lineup?
Mhm.
Those are the best players in each position because you want to create the momentum. And this is exactly why it's so important to pick the right team, especially at the first 10 employees.
I think those are some really good points. I think momentum goes to across all of those by the sound of it. I think on the funding side of it, it'd be great if we could go into that in a little bit more detail in a sec, and maybe go through a bit of a snapshot of how funding actually works in Web3. But finding the right team, that's obviously something that's close to my heart, being in recruitment, obviously. Would you say then that when you were first launching startups, when you were building, founding teams and this kind of stuff, would you tend to look for people who had the right attitude over the skills? Like, was that more important to you, the passion and the attitude and that kind of thing? Or do you think when you're building your first five, to quote your basketball analogy, when you're choosing your starting five for the team, do you try and find the perfect person? Do you go for, as I said, go for attitude over skill? Like, how do you do it? Like, if you were advising a founder who's going, right, I've got this project, I need to build a founding team, how would you advise that they do it?
I think this is it takes a master skill, right? To say um, to know from the get go, is it the right person or not? I will fast forward to your question and say you can find great people that are not evolving with the startup. Startup in Web3, project in Web3 is on steroids. Okay. And we've seen many times that people that were amazing, they don't know how to evolve and to grow up with the energy that you're growing up. They're growing to a different direction. And it doesn't mean they're not good. They were helping you in this era of time,
Mhm.
sometimes only for 6 months. But then you growing up, the kids is know how to walk now, so it doesn't need a nanny or something else, right? So, and this is, I think, to have the ability to let go people and to see like, okay, one chance, this is where you need to work on setting expectation, feedback. And sometimes it just doesn't work, so it's also very, very important not only to hire very good people, but also to know very quickly it's past the stage that they can bring value to the startup. Again, not because they're bad, but because it doesn't grow in the right direction that you want to grow with your startup.
For sure. Yeah, I think you're completely right. It's something I advise quite a lot. I know and speak to a lot of founders who go, right, I need to hire the best people. And I say, you don't necessarily need to hire the best, you need to hire the right people. So it's hiring the right people at the right time, which I think is super, super key to any startup growth. The CTO that you might hire to go from 0 to 1 and get the product built and to get something working isn't the person who would then grow 4 or 5 teams for you of 5, 10 people. They may be, but you maybe need someone with a slightly different background, different experience who can take that scale up approach, right? So I always advise it's hiring the right people, not the best people. They'll still be good, but they'll just be the
A-
right people at the right time.
Again, best is very
Subjective,
subjective
right? Mm.
definition, right? Yeah.
But no, I think you're completely right. That hiring the right people and obviously the best people is very subjective. Um, it would be really useful, I think, as I mentioned a second ago, you started talking about the funding in Web3. Um, I appreciate there's all sorts of different avenues that people could go through, right, when it comes to funding and that kind of thing. Could you give us a bit of a snapshot as to how that actually works in Web3 and maybe the different avenues that you can go down when you're thinking about trying to go for funding in a startup?
As in everything in life, especially in Web3, you need a very good strategy. You need to create the FOMO. You need to make sure that you capture the investor interest, but it's like a meme coin. It goes like that, and you need to continue pump the FOMO until you get to your target, right? So like the strategy means that, okay, I want to get to this VCs, to create the list. Those are the lists that I have with warm introduction to those VCs, right? Warm introduction means when you do the intro, you add your mentor, your advocate, add. Don't miss this project, okay? Um, and I think this one, aggregating, surrounding ourselves with OGs that bring tons of experience that say, look, maybe they are a bit new to Web3, but they have like amazing reputation. This is was really helpful for us to kind of jump in and choose the best investor, finish also the round fairly quickly, and concentrate on the growth, concentrate on building rather than just speaking with investor all the time.
Mm. I guess that shows how important, as you mentioned as well, like actually going to the events and networking and building your network. Because without the network, you don't have the warm intro, the trusted people who know you and know your reputation and this kind of stuff to be able to, add their recommendation onto the intro and stuff, right? So I guess that then makes it even more important to go out and network when you add the funding element into it as well.
It is, but don't expect in a random event you will find the right investor. Usually, that's not the way it is, right? It's if you go to an event to find investor, I would just recommend you try to find the closest mentor, the advisor that can be the door opener, because in events with thousands and even more people, like, it's not going to get there.
Mm, for sure. So I guess if
Event
you
is
if you go
better
to
to test what is the market appetite with the product itself, to yeah.
fair enough, fair enough. So I guess if you go to the events with the mindset of trying to find people to feedback on your product and the actual idea itself, and then maybe from that you can try and find some good mentors through those events, and then maybe speak to those mentors about who they know from like a funding and investment perspective. Is that kind of the route to go down, or a route to try?
When you get to the event, and you know that the investor there, it's you also should know, rather than a cold call to approach him, that someone else can introduce you to him. And even before the introduction, ask him, and don't be afraid, ask him, how would you introduce me to him? And he says,
Okay.
yeah, it's a good project, and those are the one line, the liner run the one liner pitch that you should use, and you should reiterate that. Be ready with that, because you're going to have the elevator pitch. You don't going to have 30 seconds. When I started, we were speaking, you have elevator pitch, 30 seconds. No, in crypto it's 2 lines. 2 lines. You understand that. Again, before he gets context switch, you say, by the way, we also have 1, 2, 3. That's the key differentiator that nobody has. Oh, by the way, I'm
Mm,
bringing a specific experience. My background is exactly in that. I know here the missing link. Otherwise, you have thousands like you.
that's cool. Do you remember your two-liner?
Uber for now? No, actually, when we started, it was not Uber for nodes. When we started, was a decentralized RPC, and investor liked it, because there is a real need for that, and we knew how to say, okay, those are the problems we're solving. But thanks to Alliance, the accelerator we joined, the community, the amazing founders, we were able to take it to the next level with Uber for Nodes, and this has really caused the seed investment that really brought us to where we are.
Nice, nice. Uber for nodes. I like it. Um, so I think we've obviously touched on a lot of different topics and in this call. Is there anything, if someone is either looking to join the industry? You know, if they're thinking they may have an idea, or even if they're thinking, look, I'd love the thought of Web3, I love the technology, I love the culture, I want to become part of the industry. Is there anything, and you may have already said it, but is there any advice or anything you would like people to know about the industry before joining it?
Yeah, I think that you need to be up to speed all the time, because crypto is changing constantly, right? The top 10 networks are changing on a monthly basis. Um, Regulation, compliance can change, in daytime, really revert whole ecosystems.
Mm,
And you need to be passionate about this revolution that I believe all of us are part of. But you need always to ask yourself to think critically, right? It looks amazing, traveling all over the world, ask the right question, meet new people. It's easy to create like new circles of friends and have amazing experience, but depends on your goal, right? I think nobody today could know the entire different aspects of Web3, right? There is so many different topics and domains that people cannot just process.
mm.
You need to see what's make your heart sing, right? You need to see what kind of topics you really believe going to evolve. Is it real world assets? Is it a chain abstraction? Is it like what's exactly there is motivating you and you feel passionate about? But it's going to take a lot of energies, and especially the beginning. I was going through you know um, like unlimited number of YouTubes, of white papers, of podcasts, and it never stopping because everyone is presenting his own approach, his own skin in the game, and wants you to believe to some specific agenda.
For sure, that I think that continuous learning is massive in the industry, right? But I think you're definitely right with the comment of finding your passion, like finding what genuinely interests you. I was having a conversation a few months back with another guest on the show, and he's the VP of technology at a pretty very well known project. And the way that he was actually offered that role of VP of technology is because he worked out that zero knowledge was the only area in Web3 that he wanted to work on. He hadn't worked in the industry before. It was the only area that he cared about working in. So he made a list of all of the projects that were working on zero knowledge tech, reached out to the founders of every single one, and said, I'm super, super passionate about solving your problem. I don't care about anything else. I just want to focus on zero knowledge tech. And that passion really came across in his message and in the conversations he was having. And they actually offered him, a VP of technology role that had a big project, purely for showing that passion. So I think if you're, it's good advice not just for people who are in the industry, but even if you're looking to get into the space. If you're looking for a job, just having that passion or finding that passion, finding what interests you, can have a massive impact on the roles you can get and the conversations that you can have and that kind of thing. But I thought that was a pretty cool story when he was telling me about it.
100%.
Um,
Yeah, I think passion in general it's addictive. So
mm. So obviously we've talked a lot today. You shared a lot of advice. You've talked us through the past and obviously what's going on right now. What does the future hold for you, Magma Devs, Lava Network? Can you share a little bit of that, please?
definitely, I think in the last few months, because it's kind of a bearish industry, I think it's great time to build. And my trip just now to Singapore, Korea, the Asian conferences, it showed me there is a lot of passion about building a something with utility, about making sure while you're speaking with the top sexes and the usage of the exchanges wallets and so forth, everyone is looking at the adoption and the utility. There's a lot of buzzwords, but if at the end of the day, like there's no usage that generating value, um, that's gonna not gonna work on the long run for the project. So I think what is very special with Lava and what we were lucky to start building and seeing now forming into an amazing community, an amazing infrastructure, is the fact that this is and Lava is the access layer and becoming the backbone for any decentralized infra. When you think about connecting to the blockchain itself, read write transactions, the real, the real need to get the data, uh, with Lava, you can implement one line of code and get access to all Web3. When chains are bootstrapping their own infra, they always need to go through the same hurdles. They need to go and find RPC providers. They need API indexing, Subgraph, Oracle, and so forth. But what is very unique about how Lava is formed is kind of an incentivized layer for any data primitive. So you see that in the new partnership that Lava just formed with the layer one, layer two blockchains. Um, from Near to Starknet to Filecoin, uh, Lava is going multi-chain. We spoke about this at the beginning. I think when a protocol is able to be flexible and support the scalability of different chains, this is a key to that really brings the utility to the front. And just summarizing the last Lava update that they shared 2 weeks ago, um, you see that there are 2.5 million unique users using Lava. They don't even know about that, right? It's 2
Yeah,
million unique users of wallets, exchanges, dApps, that the backbone is Lava. You see that over $1 million that was handed back to the providers that doing this service, that making sure that you have 100% uptime in near ecosystem, that you can get information from more than 30 different blockchain at once. Those are the critical role that I personally believe for Web3 adoption that to accelerate. This is what I see, how Lava plays this critical role.
that sounds cool. Yeah, did you say 2.3 or 2.5 million?
Almost 2.5 unique users. I can share
Yeah,
afterwards, after the podcast, our the stats, leaderboard, and yeah, everyone can check it out.
that's brilliant. Sounds cool. Well, yeah. There's one question that I always like to ask everyone before we finish up. Um, Knowing what you know now about technology, leadership, entrepreneurship, Web3, if you could go back to the very start, do you have a piece of advice that you'd share with your younger self?
Yeah, so I think that building f- first of all, decide where you building the your project in. Creating the first ecosystem, it's super important. I see today that in different ecosystem you get different push, and obviously you need to find the right champion in the industry you're building on. um, our project is a bit unique because it touches multi-chain, so it can be EVM, non-EVM, but usually a project decides to build something for a specific ecosystem and then take it from there and expand. So I think most of my advice for new founders is really find a champion in an ecosystem that you really like and get attached to it and make the most of it. We didn't have this kind of person at the beginning in Cosmos, but we decided to build on Cosmos. And obviously, um, it would be much more helpful if we knew the people in the foundation, the people that were initial building that, the OGs, and so forth. So we just did a nosedive to an ecosystem without knowing them, and I think it will make our life much easier if we knew the ecosystem before.
It's brilliant advice. Brilliant advice. Well, yeah, it's been great to have a conversation with you today. Thank you very much for taking the time to come on. And yeah, you said some great advice. I'm definitely going to go back and listen to this episode again and make a bunch of notes on a lot of things you said. Um, so thank you very much for taking the time to come on. And yeah, loved having you on as a guest.
Thank you so much, Jack. It was insightful for me, and yeah, hopefully we're gonna see you soon.
Sounds great. I'll speak to you soon. Take care.